Welcome to episode 42 of the Horsemanship Breakthroughs podcast, The Way of the Horse, Believing in Yourself, and Working with the Horse You Have Today with Skye Liikanen. So I actually first heard about Skye a little while ago because she is a breech ambassador for QJ Riding Wear, which some of you may know I wear QJ clothes a lot and have also modeled for them. So I really like QJ stuff, and I know that Skye likes QJ as well. So that's when I first heard about her. And then more recently, I heard about her competing in the Way of the Horse at Equitana 2022. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend, but I was keenly watching Instagram stories and trying to see what was happening in the Way of the Horse and what the trainers were up to. And then when I heard that Skye had won, I knew that I had to reach out and get her onto the podcast so we could talk about the Way of the Horse and her experience and her training, etc. So who is Skye? Skye grew up riding horses and was very competitive to national level in dressage and showing, being a member of the Queensland Young Rider Squad and Horse of the Year winner. She spent over 4 years as a trick rider / performer at the Australian Outback Spectacular. Skye had the opportunity to move to Tom Price in WA for 2 years before following her passion for horses to North America. After spending time working with horses in Canada, Skye had the amazing opportunity to work as assistant trainers for Dan and Elizabeth James of the Australian Equine Performance Center in Midway, Kentucky. Working for Dan James gave Skye many unique opportunities and the experience of working with a large range of horses, including warmbloods, thoroughbreds, quarter horses, and mustangs. While in the USA, Skye took part in the retired racehorse project Thoroughbred Makeover. Training her thoroughbred Brumby over 6 months, they won the Dressage Championship and placed 4th in the freestyle in a field of 100. And more recently, Skye was the Equitana Australia 2022 The Way of the Horse winner, having competed against 2 other amazing female trainers working with unhandled horses over 4 70-minute sessions over 4 days. So amazing achievement, and I knew that it was going to be an amazing chat with Skye. So I really love speaking with Skye. To be honest, it felt like I was talking to a friend. My impression of her is that she's really humble. She's a true Aussie horsewoman. She's got broad experience. She's really down to earth and super confident, but still open-minded and thirsty for more knowledge and experience. So definitely my kind of girl. And I have to let you know, there's occasionally an audio breakdown, but you should still be able to hear the full conversation. So bear with me when that happens. And I really liked what she said about developing confidence and her answer to what makes a happy horse, which is actually the first time someone has kind of had this answer to that question. And I'm sure she would agree with other trainers who have mentioned the 3 Fs, but I really like what she said. So stay tuned for the answer to that question. And as always, if you love this episode, please leave me a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, and even screenshot this episode and text it to a friend who you think might like it, or share it on social media. I love getting messages from people all over the world who love the podcast, and hearing your breakthroughs always makes my day and encourages me to keep going with the podcast. So if you feel like it, please send me a message on Instagram at Amalia_horses. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the Horsemanship Breakthroughs podcast, a source for riding and training insights with the goal of helping your horse be a light, happy, and willing partner. I'm your host, Amalia Dempsey, a mainstream equestrian rider who discovered natural horsemanship and equine learning theory, and now I help riders like you achieve connection and communication with your horse so you can have more fun and fulfillment whilst prioritizing the partnership. Get more learning resources, including my free connection and communication mini course at amaliadempsey.com. Click the follow button so you don't miss an episode, and if you're enjoying the podcast, please leave me a rating and review or screenshot this episode and share on social media. I hope you enjoy the show. So today I have the privilege of welcoming the Equitana Australia 2022 The Way of the Horse winner onto the Horsemanship Breakthroughs podcast, Skye Liikanen. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, and I feel very grateful for an opportunity for this.
It's going to be an interesting chat. Like I said off air, I've had a few people send in some questions. So I'm going to be asking my usual questions on the podcast today, but also some extras. So I think it's going to be really interesting. Let's start off with, I always like to get a little bit of background first on, you know, how you got into horses in the first place and what has led to where you are today. So a bit about your horsemanship journey.
Yeah, for sure. So I was super lucky. I was one of those little girls that had a pony before they could walk. My mum is just as horse crazy as what I am. So I was very lucky to, have horses throughout all my life. I competed successfully at Pony Club and progressed through to, the show horse world, into dressage. And I was very lucky to have some, really nice and competitive horses and was quite successful. I was able to then get a job while I was at university, actually studying to be a school teacher of all things, a sport teacher. I got a job at the Australian Outback Spectacular on the Gold Coast. So I was a stunt rider there for almost 5 years. Also did a bit of lead role and general stable hand work as well for them. So that was an amazing opportunity that I'm so thankful for, because I really think it's, set me up in so many aspects in, I guess, my career later on. And then from there, I did go out to be a teacher for a few years, but the horses have always been my love and passion and drive. So that's when I decided to pack up and sell everything here in Australia, and I moved to Canada. And I worked for, of all things, a chuck wagon driver. And if you haven't never seen chuck wagon driving before, I definitely say go have a look what it looks like. It's absolutely crazy. Loved that. And then spent some time up in the Rocky Mountains as a wrangler on pack trips. Absolutely exceptional. 7 days up in the mountains, middle of nowhere. Horse and wagon were the only ways to get up there, or riding your horse. There was no motorbikes allowed or cars or anything like that. So that was just an exceptional time up there. And as it started to get colder in Canada, I needed a way to get out. So I actually ended up messaging a friend back here in Australia, and he gave me a contact for Dan James of Double Dan Horsemanship. And before I knew it, was down there, and I ended up working for him and his wife Elizabeth for just over 2 years. And that was absolutely the opportunity of a lifetime. I'm so thankful for the opportunity that they gave me over there, competing in a thoroughbred makeover, starting and working with so many different horses, thoroughbreds for the track, problem horses, and then just all the other amazing people that I got to meet along the way over there as well. And then I guess once I moved back to Australia, just started my own business. And majority of my work now is working for International Thoroughbred Retirement. So bringing race horses back from Hong Kong and putting them through a re-education program, and they get rehomed through a free adoption program. So it pretty much goes on the basis of the best home most suitable for each horse, which is really cool. So that's sort of like a very, very long story in a short time.
Yeah, wow. And what a broad range of experience you've had with horses so far. What led you to, well, I should say, congratulations on winning the Way of the Horse, and what led you to want to enter that competition? And can you tell us a little bit about your experience with that?
Yeah, for sure. So I received a phone call from Sandy Simons in about May this year, asking if I would be interested in the competition. And it's not something that, I would have put my hand up for, I wouldn't have gone and searched for it. But when an opportunity like that arises, I find it's a challenge that I have to set myself to see if, I can do it. So I definitely, I snapped up the opportunity, and I guess, I have had, a lot of experience starting horses, but doing it in that sort of time frame, in that atmosphere, in front of all those people, is something that I definitely hadn't done before. So I'm really glad that I took that challenge on, because you're always constantly growing as a horse person, and I think it's always good to challenge yourself. And I'm really super thankful to Equitana for having me there, and to compete alongside Hayley and Steph was just exceptional. Those girls are absolutely awesome, and I think it's a really good thing that Sandy did, is to prove that us girls, we can start a horse as well. It's not, I think it's a very male orientated not sure exactly the word I'm looking for, but it's mostly, you know, that males that do start, you know, our younger horses. And I think, yeah, I hope that I have given some people some confidence to believe that they can do it as well.
Absolutely. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first time ever at Equitana that we've had 3 female trainers compete. Is that right?
That's correct. Yep. As from what I've seen, I think there's only been one other female competitor in the history of Way of the Horse. So to have all 3 girls this year was just the coolest thing to be a part of. And I hope that, you know, it can be repeated again.
That is amazing. And for those listeners who maybe haven't ever seen the Way of the Horse or weren't able to attend Equitana this year, could you give us a rundown of exactly what it is, and even maybe a bit of a kind of synopsis of your sessions with the mare that you had?
Yeah, for sure. So Way of the Horse is a young horse starting competition where you have to try. It was 70 minutes each day over 4 days, which ended up being 60 minutes because we had to give the horses a 10-minute break within that 70-minute period. And we were told by the judges and organisers that we were pretty much to get far as we could within the starting process. And on the final day, there would be a 15-minute final where they would want to see us, you know, walk, trot, canter the horse under saddle, possibly over obstacles. But obviously, you know, they made it very clear that, you know, you only go to what your horse, you know, is sort of giving you. So the little mare that I had, she was, I just had it in my, I don't know, when I saw all those little ponies out in the round yard, I was like, that one's going to have to be mine, because it was the one that literally was running around. She was calling out. She wanted her buddies. You know, the atmosphere, you know, you could see, was sort of getting to her. So I was like, I knew that I had a bit of a challenge on my hands, but I find that those sort of horses is who I work with best. And I feel like, you know, pretty early on within the first hour on the first day that, you know, I convinced her that, you know, I can be her new friend in life, that, you know, I can be the one that she can look to. So she had a huge turnaround within that first hour, and each day she just come in better and better. And I was lucky enough. So on the first day, and like what people have to realize, that none of these horses had been halter broke. There, literally, she had, you know, mats in her forelock, she had mats in her mane. You know, her feet are definitely due for a trim, and they literally have been, you know, had very, very minimal handling. So to take them from, you know, where we start them to where we finish them on the 4 days, you know, those girls should be, you know, so proud of what they achieved with those horses. So yeah, that's sort of, I guess, the process that we went through, is just, you know, keeping yourself safe and keeping a happy horse throughout the competition.
Yeah, that is incredible. Like, I can't imagine what sort of pressure you'd be under, you know, starting a horse in front of a crowd in that atmosphere, and with the pressure of trying to get as much done as possible with the final coming up, and knowing that you're competing against others. Could you give us a rundown of like what you did with your particular mare each session? Like, really
sure.
brief?
So on day one, she did take a little bit to catch. But once I did get a hold of her, you know, just getting my hands on her, trying to find, you know, that scratchy spot, you know, that could convince her that, hey, that I'm, you know, going to be a friend. So just trying to find, that scratchy spot on her to convince her that, I could be her new friend. And then just started like a bit of desensitizing with the ropes and being able to throw the rope over her back, you know, starting to touch down her legs, across underneath her belly, and sort of getting ready for that. You know, I was setting her up for day 2 to be able to put the surf single on her. You know, started, you know, changing my energy around her. And I feel like that's a, you know, huge part of the process, is that it can't all be like, you know, tiptoeing soft and quiet, you know. So I would, you know, change my energy around her, whether it was, you know, walking quicker around her, or, you know, starting to jump up and down, and just starting to build her confidence, you know, with my different energy levels, which I think, you know, especially for the filly that I knew was going to play a huge role in it, as she was quite sensitive to everything that was going on around her. So then by day 2, once again, walked in and got her halted, and then started the repetition of the day before. So starting to get that ground control, so being able to move her around left and right, lateral flexion, the rope going over her body, putting the rope over through her belly as if, I was starting to put a girth on around, starting just, a little bit of desensitizing. And then I think, on day 2, I did get up to what I call a safety rein in the long rein setup. So I have the long rein run from the bit back to the surcingle, and it just encourages them to start softening to that bridle to get flexion left and right. So that's where I finished on day 2. And I think I actually got a bareback sit on day 2 as well, if I remember rightly. So just being able to, so just been able to, jump up on her and just sit up on her back and get my hands over her and, let her see me from a different, angle up on top and that sort of stuff. So that was actually probably a pretty special moment, her just being able to stand there, nice and relaxed, me sitting up on there, rubbing over her. And then day 3, I obviously, everything is about revision. So the first, 20 minutes, half an hour is revision. I also added in my second long rein, being able to turn her. And then day 3, I actually had a very small, it was only maybe just a couple minute ride where I got up to walk and trot. Nice, smooth. She was super calm. I was super happy with her. And then day 4, we had 40 minutes before going into the 15-minute final. So once again, revision, popped her back in the long reins quickly and then jumped on her and had a ride at walk, trot and canter, which I was super stoked with her. She just, every day she just come in better and better. Our connection was, just getting stronger each time. Although throughout the whole process, it's, I still had to be very aware of her and, her reactions. And as she was quite, sensitive to stuff, she could one moment, be standing there all good. And then the rope would accidentally, flick on her leg and, she would sort of get a little bit panicked about it. So then it was bringing that, back down again and going, hey, it's okay. It's all good. And then my 15-minute final, there was a bit of obviously they opened up 2 round yards. So the space was a bit bigger and she couldn't quite see her buddies. So I will say in the final, she, her energy had definitely a bit of a change than what I'd sort of dealt with towards each of the sessions on the 4 days. So I just went through my groundwork process, just jumping up and sitting on her bareback, rubbing over and got the saddle and bridle on. And I can tell you what, that 15 minutes is the quickest 15 minutes of my entire life. So I didn't quite get to show, well, obviously I had the 40-minute session where they, could see me ride her, but I didn't get to manage to jump back on her in that 15 minutes. She just wasn't quite settled in the mind. And, there's no point pushing something that, can, ruin my relationship with her. So I just sort of left it at that. So I was so proud of her. She was just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible. And even I suppose most of the crowd would have seen what you were able to achieve in the 4 days. Like the final is sort of just the icing on the cake, really, isn't it? And you were able to still demonstrate some amazing things in that time. So well done.
Thank you.
Congratulations again. That's just so cool. And obviously, 4 days or 4 sessions, really, 4 60-minute sessions. It's a pretty short amount of time. And I wondered, how your process differs when you're not in a competition environment, when you do have a little bit more time. Could you give us a little bit more insight around that?
Yeah, for sure. So a huge part of my program is the long reining process. And obviously I would have loved to have spent, much more time long reining her. But with the time frame we had, I sort of, went to the absolute basics of being able to stop and turn. But I use long reining obviously in my starting process with horses, but also with a lot of the work that I do with the off the track thoroughbreds is in the re-education. So long reining for me, I think is a fine art that, doesn't get used very often, but I feel like it's a tool that, I really wish people would, use in their programs. It's a good way to educate your horse, but then watch how your horse travels. And then also it's just another, I find a really good relationship building exercise with them as well. And also from a fitness point of view as well, once you get them traveling around in the arena, you don't need to go to a gym. you can be running along beside them.
True.
And, get your fitness
I'm
up
all
as
about
well.
rider fitness.
Yeah. So there's so many benefits to long reining, and I was really lucky to be able to do a long reining demonstration there at Equitana that I felt like I got a really good response from. So I really hope that people can fall in love with long reining as much as what I have.
Yeah, awesome. And one of our listeners wanted to know that if you ever felt nervous in front of the crowd, or were there any moments where you were worried that something would go wrong?
That's a really funny question. And I think after working at Australian Outback Spectacular, riding in front of 1,000 people, almost every night, I've become numb to it. And especially when you're in a competition process like that, everyone, sort of said to me, they're like, oh, did you see how many people were watching and everything like that? And I said, I wouldn't have a clue. Just absolutely no idea. The most important thing to me in that moment is, that little horse that I'm working with. So all my attention is focused on her. So I'm just super lucky, I guess, with my experiences that, working in front of a crowd like that, definitely doesn't affect me anymore.
Yeah, that's so cool how you were able to kind of stay in your own little focused bubble and not let the crowd affect you. But yeah, like you say, the experience probably helped with that. And earlier you mentioned that you kind of like to work with more nervous type horses. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I want to give them a reason, to believe that it is okay, that, the world and the environment and the people that are around them, that it's a good experience, they can enjoy our company. And I just really enjoy the challenge. I love being able to come back each day and, see that little bit of progress as they come along, in developing a trusting relationship with us. I can't, really say what it is that draws me to them, but I just love a good challenge, and I really enjoy, the more sensitive type of horses. Everyone thinks I'm crazy. I've got an exceptional off the track thoroughbred mare that's definitely very special in a very own special way. And there's lots of people that said to me, I couldn't deal with her, but she literally, every day, I work with her, she literally, just lights me up and puts a smile on my face. And, and I guess with that, it's the challenge of finding something that works for that horse. That's, I guess, what I enjoy, finding what is it that I can make this horse, tick and think in a positive way.
Yeah. And what made you decide to keep the grey mare, and what are your plans with her in the future?
Oh, I was like, I have to bring her home. Just her little face, every day, when I walked into that round yard and I opened that gate, her eyes just like hooked onto me, and her little ears that pricked up. And, I thought it was a really good opportunity for me to take on a horse that literally is my work from the very start. Like, she is such a clean slate. So I thought I would snap up that opportunity to really start with something that's, really raw, and then hopefully, I can share my journey with her, with other people that fell in love with her along the way. So, and I have a bit of an obsession, everyone knows this, with greys. They are my lucky charm.
Me too.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about them, but all my best horses have been greys, and I have, like I said, the grey thoroughbred mare. So I'm hoping they might make a cute little Liberty team together as well. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, that will be interesting. We'll have to keep our eyes peeled for that.
Yes.
And speaking of clean slates, do you find that it's easier to work with a horse that's perhaps unhandled versus one that's perhaps already got established issues or things that you need to work through?
Yeah, like I said, ones that haven't, had much work done to them. That's one of my favorite things, is probably, starting to work with yearlings, when we start to hold to break them and stuff like that. They're just so trusting of you in those beginning stages, because nothing has been, done wrong by them. So you find that they pick up processes way more quickly, and that they're, super trusting of you. And that's not to say, that a horse that, might have had a rough past that won't come around, but it definitely, you have to, it's almost like it takes twice as long. Whereas if you get it right the first time, it's like you tick the boxes and you can move along. But something that, hasn't had the best experiences, it does take that, extra time and effort and, going back over and over and over for them to build that relationship.
Yes, makes sense. And what did you learn from the other participants in the Way of the Horse?
That you just got to do what works for you. Those girls, both Steph and Haley, have their own program, that works for them, and that you got to do what works for you. I give them full credit. They did an absolutely exceptional job, and they're absolute winners in my eyes as well, because to do what we did is to be out there in front of all those people, and then do what we do at home, usually, in our quiet little place, and to come out there in the open and share our knowledge with everyone. Those girls are, absolutely top notch, and I'm so proud of them.
Yes, I agree. I think just participating in the Way of the Horse in itself is, you deserve a medal for just participating. So yeah, amazing work. And is there anything that you would have done differently if you were to do it again?
That question, when I read that one, I couldn't really, think of a direct answer of it, because you look back at all your videos and stuff like that, and obviously, there's moments of go, or maybe I could have done this, but maybe I could have done that. But the biggest thing I'll say to that is you have to believe in yourself and what you're doing within the moment. Because if you start second guessing yourself, then your horse is going to start second guessing. So everything that I did throughout that competition, I was 100% confident within the time that I was doing it. But yeah, obviously, looking back on videos and stuff like that, maybe my timing might have been a little bit off. Maybe, I didn't do something quite right or something like that. But there's nothing that I can change. And I feel like, I gave that little filly the best opportunity I could in the moments that I had.
Yeah, I think, there's always room for improvement, and we're always our own worst critics, if you know what I mean. Like, we're always, I could have done that better, could have done this better, but it sounds like you did an amazing job. So, and I love what you said, believe in yourself and what you're doing within that moment. And I think horses can feel that as well. If you're confident in what you're doing, they really thrive off that, versus if you're like second guessing or hesitating, they can really feel that energy.
Yeah, and the horses are so sensitive to that. So that's one thing that I would, say to anyone out there, that does want to, start their own horse, or, build a better relationship. As long as you're confident, believe in yourself, and, your horse is going to feed off that energy. And I'm very lucky to, have spent some time with Warwick Schiller. I consider him a really good friend, and so much of horse training is actually about ourselves, our mental state, the feeling that, we give off from our body language, our thought processes. Like, so much of horse training is actually to do with us. So I think that's a huge part of it, is not just being able to train a horse, but it's that mental side of it as well.
Absolutely. And on that note of, building a connection and relationship with your horse, what are some practical things that horse owners could do on a daily basis that would make a big difference to their relationship with their horse? This was a listener question, by the way.
Yeah, for sure. The biggest thing I can say to that one is spend time with your horse without expectation. And by that, I mean, just go sit in the paddock with your horse. Go take a book out there. Go relax with it. I think, the biggest thing that we have, is that expectation, or, say I'm going to go catch my horse, saddle it up, go ride it in the arena, or go for a trail ride, or do this. Take away expectation, and you'll be really surprised what can happen with your relationship with your horse.
So true. So true. And how would you've already kind of elaborated on your style, especially with the long reining and your process that you worked through with the 4 days with the filly, but how would you summarize your training approach or philosophy with horses?
Work with the horse that you have today. That's a huge line that has stuck with me. And that's the biggest thing. I work with a lot of people, and they're like, oh, it was going so good. And now it's just, not so good. But there's no direct scale that just heads direct up. going in a nice, straight diagonal line. It's going to go up and down. It's going to change. It's going to depend on, what's happening in your life, at that point in time. So that's the biggest thing I'd say, is that, not everything is going to look perfect all the time. And I think that's a big thing that people have fear of, is that something might not look right, but maybe that horse has to go through that moment of, stickiness, of where it, doesn't look the prettiest, but they will come through on the other side. And I think that's what a lot of people, and I think I probably didn't answer the question quite earlier, is that, am I worried about, things going wrong? And it's you can't worry about things going wrong, because you, like I said, you have to be 100% confident what you're doing with the horse. And with horses, it's never going to look, 100% perfect. There's always going to be moments, they get a fright, they might, panic about something, but it's how you get them through that moment is what's most important.
Yes, so true. Yeah. And what would you say to those people? This is a little bonus question that I didn't give you, but just on that note of feeling 100% confident, what would you say to someone who really doesn't feel that confident around their horse? How do they cultivate that confidence around horses? Is it through more experience? Is it through lessons? Is it through mindset? What do you think?
Yeah, so definitely, a huge one, obviously, for me is your mindset. There's no point, working with your horse if you've had just, the worst day at work, where you're feeling anxious or, upset or anything like that. Those would be the days where I'd go, you know what, just go sit in your horse, in the paddock, hang out with it, that sort of thing. But the biggest thing is just, finding people around you that support who you are, and finding a program that works for you, finding that trainer that you go, oh wow, like I love, like that's, I guess, the biggest thing, throughout the opportunities that I've had. I've picked people that I look at them and I go, wow, I want to be like that. And so it's finding those people that not only that you meet on a personal level, but then their principles and methods of training that they follow through with. And I really look at how they work with their horse, and that for me is a huge decision making, and what, like, where I've wanted to go to learn from.
Yeah. And I know you've spent some time with Dan James and Warwick Schiller, but have there been any other influential mentors along your journey?
Another huge two, I'm super lucky, is actually Dan and Piers Steers back here in Australia. So I've been really lucky to work with both the Dans. And throughout the last few years since I've been home from the States, I've been fortunate enough to go work alongside Dan and Pierre. And I went down there for a couple of weeks before Equitana, and I was lucky enough to work with some young horses leading up to the competition. And those two are absolute role models for our horse industry. And I'm, once again, super grateful for the opportunities that they have given me, throughout, I've known them for a very long time as well. And yes, and I guess while I was in the States as well, Brett Parbury, he's an Australian dressage rider. He was there helping me with my thoroughbred makeover horse that I competed with in Kentucky. So he was there. Actually, it was super very cool experience, because I had Dan James, Warwick Schiller, and Brett Parbury all based at Dan's leading up to the 2018 World Equestrian Games. So I know, to have the three of them in the same place, and to be riding out in the arena with them each day, I would have to say is just like one of the coolest opportunities I've ever had. And I've learnt so much from the three of them, in that 6 weeks that they were there. So I've definitely been very, very lucky with opportunities.
Yeah, wow, that would have been an incredible experience. And I suppose it would come pretty close to your happiest horse memory, right? But is there some other happy horse memories that you could share with us?
Yeah, for sure. I have a few, I guess. As I was just talking about, I got to compete in the thoroughbred makeover in Kentucky. So it's a 4-day competition, and they have approximately, I think it was just over 600 thoroughbreds compete over 10 disciplines. And I had once again a beautiful grey gelding who I miss so much every day, but he is with one of Dan's clients who absolutely just loves him. And I was lucky enough on him. I won the dressage component of the disciplines, and then I got 4th in the freestyle over there. So that for me was a really exceptional time. He is, because he was once again this off the track fella. He was quite tricky to start with, very stressed, going out to competition. So I had to, help teach relaxation and get him using his body correctly and all that. And then obviously trying to put all the liberty work on him as well for the freestyle side of it. So that was a huge 6 months leading up to that competition with that horse. And then I guess more recently for what I do now is I rehome off the track thoroughbreds from Hong Kong, and they go through a free adoption program. And more recently they've gone to some teenage riders that haven't had a huge budget to buy a horse. So to actually have this program where these young riders can have an off the track thoroughbred with some decent education and are just super temperaments, and they can take them on for free, that for me is why I love my job. To see those kids' faces out competing now on those horses is absolutely just brilliant.
That would be so rewarding, and I think many of our Australian listeners can relate, because most of us, I would say, had off the track thoroughbreds as teenagers, and we can probably all agree that it would have been nice to have a bit more of a transition period where there was a bit more education. I'm curious to know though, is there a difference between working with horses that have come from Hong Kong, like Hong Kong race horses, versus Australian race horses?
I'm going to say yes. I've worked with Australian off the tracks since I was 18 years old, and it's only been more recently in the last few years that I have taken on the work from international thoroughbred retirement. And I think the biggest difference is these boys that come back from Hong Kong, they live in high-rise buildings, so they go up and down elevators. They get walked down the main street through the traffic to get track. They're handled, multiple times a day. They've just had so much, happening to them all the time that, they're really well handled. Nothing really phases them. When they come back here, it's sort of just like, I can imagine for them probably just that peace and quiet, and they just sort of go, oh, we can just, chill out now. And, like all of some of the ones that I've had come back, and some people would go, oh, you'd never do that, but I've actually rehomed them to beginner amateur lady riders. They're that quiet that they're just happy to plod on a loose rein. They don't have a desire to run anymore. So it's actually a really, really cool thing that Amy Taylor's put together to bring. And then lots of them are Australian bred horses back home here. So it's a really, really good program, and feel really lucky to be a part of it.
Yeah, wow. Sounds like a really good program, actually. And is that actually the opposite of what I thought? I thought the Hong Kong horses would be kind of more stressed from that sort of environment and the travel, etc. But obviously it has its pros and cons.
I think they have had so much happen to them over there, so when it comes home here, it's just quiet and peaceful, and they settle into their new life really, really well.
Yeah, very cool. And what has been your biggest horsemanship breakthrough to date?
I think teaching relaxation, and that's a huge one with the working with off the track thoroughbreds so long. So being able to find a way, to communicate with them, that they can relax and be comfortable, on the ground and then under saddle around us. And I feel like, Warwick Schiller's principles of training have played a huge part, in my horsemanship journey. And then more recently, the path that he's going towards is, your mindset and how that, can affect the horses. But I would definitely say that, teaching relaxation to your horse has definitely been one of my biggest breakthroughs.
And do you have any tips on how to help horses be more relaxed?
Yeah, for sure. So within my groundwork and I guess long reining program, which then, progresses to under saddle, is that obviously I have a strong passion with the liberty work. So being able to create that connection, with no halter or lead or anything like that, is pretty cool to have that horse stay, circling around you. So I think building a good relationship, from the ground is really important.
Yeah, I would agree though. I think that I say to my own students, clear communication brings about relaxation, because often some of that stress comes from that lack of clarity and frustration about what it is that they're supposed to be doing in that moment. So yeah, really cool. And I've had other people mention Warwick Schiller and his principles of training on the podcast before as well. So I'm sure that would help people with helping their horse relax too. And what's something that you wish that every horse owner would do differently?
And I think I mentioned this earlier, is just spend time with your horse without expectation. It's not something that I see very often. People just going out and just hanging out with their horse, just to enjoy them. That would be I guess one thing that I would say I notice most throughout the places I've been, traveled to, different people's places I traveled to. Just enjoy your horse, and he'll definitely, or she will. I just feel like that connection will be better.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. And do you think those times where you're not doing anything with your horse, do you think that can be incorporated within a session, or do you like to separate them completely, as in, nope, today I'm doing absolutely nothing with my horse? Or would you incorporate more breaks of, say, undemanding time with your horse within a session?
Yes, so that's a big one, that one. So there's lots of times where I'm sure people have gone like I've been working a horse and I might just sit there for 5 minutes doing absolutely nothing. But in that moment, they might have missed what I was doing beforehand, and it might have been a massive breakthrough. So even just that sitting there and doing absolutely nothing on your horse can be a huge moment in their training. So that it's those sort of things, or being able to just take your horse out for a walk, take it for a pick of grass, or you can incorporate those sort of things within your training sessions.
Yeah, awesome. And what do you think makes a happy horse?
Happy people.
Happy people.
Happy people. Yeah, just like I said, if you're really just having that bad day, like, don't get on and ride. Go, like I said, just do something else with your horse. But yeah, your energy affects your horse. So that would be my biggest advice, is anytime that you're working with your horse, let all the outside stuff go, and really appreciate the animal that you have with you, because they're truly special in the way that they let us do what we do with them.
Yes. And if you could have dinner with any 3 horse people, dead or alive, who would it be?
I loved this question because I thought of 3 names. So my 3 would be Frederick Pignon, Ben Atkinson, and Charlotte Dujardin, for sure. They're just
really good picks.
Yeah, so I would love to just pick their brains, and just to spend some time with them, even from a training level as well, would be a dream come true. So they're definitely my 3.
Yeah, I love that mix of, the Liberty trainers, but also the dressage as well. I think it's cool that you've got like more of an open mind around who you get advice from and who you sort of look up to. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I guess that's a question I get asked. They're like, oh, so what discipline do you actually do? And I sort of I can't really answer it, because I enjoy everything. Recently I competed with my thoroughbred mare in a competition called Racehorse to Ranch Horse. So, I was there, throwing ropes, dragging logs, chasing cows on her. But then the week before that, she was at the Brisbane CDI, doing a dressage test. And then,
wow, that's so cool.
And then, literally a month after that, here I am at a colt starting competition. Like, I don't want to limit myself to one thing. I want to be, involved in as much as I can and learn as much as I can with whatever discipline it is.
I think it's so good to be that versatile as well, especially if you enjoy all those different aspects. I think in Australia, you may have experienced this also. You're kind of encouraged to pick a discipline and stick with that. But I love how you've just really broadened your horizons and gone overseas and tried lots of different things, and you're still doing that. It's yeah, really admirable.
Yeah, like I guess I'm just so lucky, the experiences I've had, like from, trick riding to chuck wagon racing to liberty work to dressage to freestyle to cows. Like I just, I'm super lucky for the experiences I've had. And yeah, you won't ever find me just doing the one same thing over and over.
And this question is a little bit of fun, and some people struggle to answer it actually, but I'd love to know what has been your best horse-related purchase in the last 12 months?
Oh, that's definitely a good one. It would have to be, and now this is going to sound so crazy, but I have, everyone thinks they look like clown shoes and they're so ugly, but my Baxter slip-on muck shoes, everyone's like, they're so ugly and can't believe that you want to wear them, but they are literally the most comfortable shoes that I can wear all day long, where my feet stay dry, and they're easy to put on and off, because that's obviously another thing I wear. That's the one thing I will say, I love breeches and my top boots. So walking between horses and stuff like that, I don't like to walk around my top boots, so I'll change my shoes out. So yeah, definitely my Baxter slip-on shoes are literally my life.
I can totally relate, because we have this kind of gross pair of really old Crocs that, not that we can really like do farm stuff in them, but my husband and I share them, and it's just something we can slip on, go out, do something and come back, and it's fine. But people rock up and they're like, oh, what are those? But they're so comfy.
Yeah. So yeah, that would definitely have to be my number one thing, that, I'm always, got a pair of them. I've got multiple pairs in different places, and they're always my go-to shoe.
I'll have to try a pair now. You'll have to tell us what brand your top boots are as well.
They're just actually a pair of Dublin ones, to be honest. I have De Niro's for my competition, like a really nice competition boot, but I just feel like, in what I do, I could be, out on a ride and I might have to get off a horse and, walk it through some water. So I'm definitely not going to have expensive top boots on, but I definitely give those Dublin ones a run for their money.
Yes. I quite like the Dublin ones actually, because they're quite close contact as well. You can move around quite easily in them. So probably good for walking when you need to.
Yeah,
as well.
They don't take much to break in. So they're definitely good to, you put them on and, you don't get any pinching points or rubbing points or anything like that. So.
Yeah. Now, listeners of the podcast are really into learning as much as they can about horses. Do you have any favorite horse books or resources?
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, like I said, Warwick Schiller's online program, I'm a huge fan, and I love both the Dans so much. So they have books, DVDs, online programs as well. And I also have another great friend from the States, Ariana Sakaris. She has a great online program as well. So yeah, they would be, the top three people that, can come to mind that, if you want a good program to follow, I love, all of them very much. And it's easy to understand, it flows easily. The information's easy to find. So yeah, they would definitely be my top three picks.
Perfect. I will add them to the list. And can you tell us what is next for you and what is your ultimate goal with horses?
That list is massive. The little brain of mine doesn't ever stop ticking, but I think a huge goal for me going for next year is that I feel like the Liberty work and programs, are really starting to come to here in Australia. And I really would love to give the opportunity for people to learn more about Liberty, and then also the competition side of it as well. So we don't have, many Liberty competitions here in Australia. So that's something that I would love to grow here and, people be a part of. and have that opportunity to, you know, and they might not want to, you know, compete competitively in it, but they still might, you know, just want to come and do a demonstration with their horse or something like that. So I want to give, you know, as many opportunities I can. And then obviously I'll keep, you know, going with my international thoroughbred retirement horses, and then also hopefully have my off the track mare and my little Connemara pony from the colt start, you know, out and about, hopefully towards the end of next year.
Amazing. Wow, you do have a lot on your list, but I have no doubt that you'll achieve it all. And I look forward to seeing what you end up doing with the Liberty and Liberty competitions in Australia, because, yeah, I agree that we don't really have anything like that. And you hear a lot of, the Liberty competitions and the thoroughbred makeovers overseas. But, yeah, we don't have a lot here in Australia. So looking forward to hearing more about that. Now, before we wrap up, can you tell us what is the one message you would like our listeners to know or hear from today's interview?
Believe in yourself. Don't ever let anyone, you know, doubt who you are, what you do. Just believe in yourself every time that you go out there with your horse.
Love that. Yeah, so good. We have covered a lot in a really short amount of time. I think it's amazing, everything that you've shared, and very inspiring what you do. Congratulations again on your win at Equitana, and thanks for coming on the podcast today and sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm definitely happy to answer anyone's questions. You know, if they have further questions, they can find me on Facebook. I've got a page called Silver Skye Equine, also on Instagram as well. So definitely, if people have more questions, I'm definitely more than happy to answer them.
Fantastic. And will there be opportunities for people to learn online from you in the future?
Yes, it's definitely on my list to do. Just making it all happen is quite the task, but it's definitely my plan.
Excellent. We look forward to that.
No,
well, thank you again.
I really, really appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for listening to the Horsemanship Breakthroughs podcast. Make sure you hit the follow button so you get notified every time a new episode is released. And if you've learned even just one small thing from today's show, I would really appreciate if you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts or screenshot this episode and share it on social media. You can connect with me on Instagram at Amalia_horses or my website amaliadempsey.com, where you can find free resources to help you on your horsemanship journey. That's all for today. Thanks for being here. Remember to train with kindness and ride with excellence, and I'll see you in the next episode.